This is another episode of Standup Comedy, your host and MC, celebrating 40-plus years on the fringe of show business. Stories, interviews, and comedy sets from the famous and not so famous. Here's your host and MC, Scott Edwards.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Stand-Up Comedy, your host and MC, and I'm doing another fun interview. I'm so excited. A guy that was a regular at the club back in the day, but now he's hailing out of Florida, doing some great success with one-man shows. We're going to talk about it all. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Peter Fogel. Peter, great to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us all the way from Florida. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing above average.
Above average. Well, that's
everyone can say great. I go, you know what? Above average. I don't get too high. I don't get too low. Just below great. So I have something to look forward to during this call.
There you go. That's smart. Well, it's great to reconnect with you. My buddy and your friend, Bruce Smirnoff, lives down the street. We were talking about you the other day. I'm so glad I could get you on the show. We did get a chance to work together at Laughs Unlimited back in the day. We want to kind of learn more about you and talk about your upcoming shows. Help us out, my podcast audience. How did you get started in comedy? Smirnoff
and I wanted to write a book called Parents, Nurture Your Children, or They'll Grow Up to Become Comedians. and Bruce says, that's so true. If I had a normal upbringing instead of a dysfunctional family, I would have been a doctor, a lawyer, some professional, but I had such a dysfunctional family at 10 years old. I said, at 10 years old, I kid you not, I was doing impressions of the usual, Edward G. Robinson, Jimmy Cagney, those are the impressions we did of kids. It was a way to I was the middle child, so I was always seeking some type of attention because everyone kind of ignored me. But at 10 years old, I grew up in such a dysfunctional family that I said, I have to get away from these people. It was like Solid 13 and Hogan's Heroes.
Yeah.
So I always wanted to be a comedian. I was a small kid, a small skinny kid that was ignored most and, growing up. And so I actually started doing stand-up or trying to do stand-up in New York City because I grew up in New York. So I would cut band like my last class at like 3:00 and take the train into, I don't know how I did this. How did I do this? Did I take a cab to the train station? We're going back over 45 years. And I would go in and wait online at Catch a Rising Star to get a ticket, a number to perform on open mic night. This is like 75, correct?
Wow. Yeah, that goes back. So, that's when the Catch was one of the few clubs operating.
Yeah, right. And you know who was online with me? Richie Gold. I don't know if you know who Richie Gold was.
Yeah.
Comedian Richie. And Jeff DeHart had just gotten back from Vietnam. And he's like, 8-9 years older than me, and I'm a kid in high school. He's a veteran coming back from Vietnam, and I didn't want to anger him. I don't know if he has post-traumatic syndrome. I don't know. And I said, oh, you're in Vietnam? Yeah, I was in Vietnam. Oh, he seems very, even-tempered. This is good. So we would stand online and get numbers, and David Brenner would show up and look at us and make a joke, and, jugglers will shoot in the head, kind of, stuff like that. And I would go online and I would audition, and my first night at Catch a Rising Star, I mean, I look young. Gratefully, I look young now, but I really looked young back then. So at 17, I looked 12. So I go on stage, and I really had colleagues back then. Imagine being 17 years old, going on stage in a nightclub. Delzer was the MC, Kelly Rogers, David Say back then. I mean, this is going back many years ago.
Oh,
I bombed. And I bombed. Of course I bombed. I'm 17 years old. And all you can hear is like, the audience goes, oh, look how young he is. And I didn't know what I was doing. Being funny with friends is one thing. Making adults laugh is another. And I'm taking the train back, getting home 3 in the morning. I think my parents are asleep. I don't even remember. But I'm going, my career's over. I'm like, my career's over. My buddy came to see me perform. He goes, what career? You had no career. You're 17 years old. You just went on stage. You have no idea how amazing that was. What do you mean, what career? You're in high school. What career? As if to say, don't worry. You'll have plenty years of disappointment ahead of you. But you took the first step and you bombed at Catch a Rising Star. And then I was at the Improv I would audition. And Glenn Hirsch, do you know the comedian Glenn Hirsch?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, you were hanging out.
So
I mean, that was before the really big wave of comedy. But if you're in the same room as Belzer and David Brenner, I mean, you're in good company and able to see people that knew how to do the craft. That had to be an educational moment for you.
Well, it was scary. I didn't know what to do. They called my name. You went up. In fact, the hottest night of the week to really do comedy back then was audition night. It was like an event. It was an event. It was packed, cigarette smoke, drinking. I mean, it's 75 and it was and so I'm on at the Improv. So I bombed at I said, wait, if I can bomb a catch, there's so many other places for me to bomb. I'll go to the world famous Improv. I go to the Improv. Again, I bomb. It's 75, right? And I'm leaving and I'm depressed again, right? You're 17 years old. I go, I'm not really good. As Jackie Mason would say, you're not very good at this. No, but I'm 17 years old. What do I know? So I'm leaving and Glenn Hirsch stops me as I'm walking out. He goes, hey, don't be depressed. You got something. You have a rhythm. You're funny. I can tell you're funny. You just got to keep working at it. This is normal. And that's what he said to me. We've been friends for since then.
Yeah, but that's great advice for any new comic. I just came out with a comedy course online, and one of you've already touched on three of the things that I mentioned in my book and online course is that you're going to bomb, you got to keep at it, and don't be discouraged. If you really want to do this, you got to keep going at it no matter what happens, because you'll improve. I mean, it's like any sport. You got to do it and you got to practice. And in your comics case, you got to write. And that's what separates a successful comedian like you from all those that don't make it.
Yes. You have to suck before you're good. Although I believe Howie Mandel was great when he immediately went on stage, and I'm sure Robin Williams was fabulous when he went on stage. Some people just have that level of zen of comedy. I mean, I don't think Robin ever sucked. May he rest in peace, Robin Williams. But when you're 17, you don't know anything. But my friend who came to see me at Catch, he goes, "You have no idea. You just went on stage, man. That's amazing. You've done more. You did more than anybody in the high school ever did. You went on stage as a professional.
Yeah, you gave it a shot. Yeah, that's.
You gave it a shot. He goes, don't be depressed because you're going to suck before you get good. And then that's just the nature of the beast. The more you do it, the funnier you get. The more stage time you get, you just automatically get funny, and you learn how to read audiences, what not to do, what not to.
So,
it's just.
Peter, that when you're 17, you're going to the Catch a Rising Star and at the Improv. Do you remember any of those early bits or jokes? Can we share with the audience what worked or what didn't work? Do you remember any of your first material?
No, not really. No. We're going back. No, not at all. I remember doing. I would make things that I remember. I do a lizard. I was actually. Here's the thing. When you're doing comedy and you study other comedians growing up, you're actually doing, until you find your own voice, you're doing versions of what you've heard and seen on TV. So I'm doing like a lizard, and I'm actually doing Lenny Schultz. And no one told me not to, but I was doing my version of Lenny Schultz's lizard. A lizard on, I had mime background, so I would go on stage. This is not necessarily attached, but during that early period, I'm doing like a lizard on the surface of the sun, and I'm doing Lenny Schultz, my version Lenny Schultz did. Well, and then I would do a dentist's office. I would take Muzak from a tape recorder, put it near the microphone, and just do the sound of having the little hook you put in your mouth when they're trying to, yeah. And that was my idea of a dentist. I would always got to laugh because everyone heard the Muzak. They all know Muzak, and they all know what a little. That little hook pipe that they,
the suction, yeah.
The suction pipe.
But see, I think your friend was right. You could tell already, Peter, that even in a young age, you had an ear for what was funny, and if you were able to get on stage, which one takes balls, and then two, you were animated and you were selling your material. Good or bad, the audience knows you're trying, and they really, the audiences want you to succeed. They want you to be funny, And I think that it's incredible that you did that. You may not remember the first bits, but doing those impressions, doing sound effects, doing a lizard on the sun, that sounds like a great start at 17. When did you feel like, or when did you get your first paid gig when you felt like, okay, I've got my 15 minutes, I'm on my way?
Well, then I went to college. I went to SUNY at Purchase, State University of New York at Purchase. I got in. I was one of like 300 people got into the acting program. And this was a professional acting program just like Juilliard. I mean, there were many famous people that went to my acting school. I studied with Stanley Tucci,
wow,
Academy Award nominee Stanley Tucci, who was on The Sopranos. Edie Falco, Purchase graduate, went to all these people. Went on to be successful actors in show business, but yet not one of them played Laughs Unlimited in Sacramento. So there you have it.
There you go. There's your claim to fame. Well,
there's my claim to fame.
It is now. So what you did is you took those early days doing some improv and sound effects and pantomime, and then you in college you were able to incorporate some actual theater experience and acting. I'm sure that helped you coalesce an act, right? And that's what kind of kicked off your comedy career?
Yes, because I'm trying to remember, and I would go back to New York. Don't forget, I'm only above New York City. I really wasn't focusing on the stand. I think I did some stand-up gigs in the city on weekends during my 18 to 22. During the summer, I would go to the White House Inn, which was in New York on Long Island. It was the Catch Rising Star of Long Island. This is where Eddie Murphy honed his skills and other comedians. Bobby Collins, Bobby Collins. He started there. There was Bobby was a very successful, not that I need to give a plug for Bobby Collins, but Bobby Collins was a successful salesman, and it was a second career for him doing stand-up. You had your day job and you did stand-up at night. That's what you did on weekends. You honed your craft, and Bobby always had that natural ability to make people laugh. And I was working out with guys that were 5, 6, 7 years older than me. You know?
And that's how a lot of people get their start, is that they have to make a living or pay the bills, and so they'll have a day job and do the comedy at night until it takes off. Now, you were talking about now it's getting closer 80. To 80. Now, that's when Laughs Unlimited opened, and I know you worked my club early in the 80s. How did you end up on the West Coast and coming to work for Laughs? At what point did you leave that cocoon of New York?
Well, no, when I graduated college, I wrote to the creative artistic director of the Second City, Del Close, who was the artistic director of the Second City, the famed improvisational theater, and I wanted to work with them. So after college, 3 weeks, I moved to Chicago. So I became a Chicago comedian first. I got my union cards in Chicago. I trained at the Second City. I was almost hired for their touring company, and I was doing stand-up because the boom really started in 80.
Right.
I would say with clubs, I played Zany. You've heard of Zany.
Oh, yeah.
No doubt. Zany, the owner, owns strip clubs. And this is what happened, what people don't know, and I'm sure you know. Club owners are going, wait a minute, why do I want to have rock bands? Why do I want to have deal with all the headbanging? They just said, I'll do stand-up comedy. Stand-up comedy was the rock and roll of the 80s.
Exactly.
Why do I have to pay a band and with all their craziness, breaking stuff? I could get comedy, put a microphone, advertise like you did. And then, so back, I was in Chicago from 80 to 81. I did theater, got my union cards, moved back to New York in 80, 81 to 86. I was in New York. That's where I was really earning a living, doing all the clubs, the one-nighters, just like every other comedian did. We worked at Catch, the comic strip, the improv, and we were doing weekend gigs. Actually, you became better as a comic when you did the one-nighters because, we were such hungry comics that we all want to go, let's go on stage at Catch. You sit there for 7 hours. You may get on, you may not get on. And I had an apartment around the corner from Catch, luckily, back then, paying $250 a month as a roommate. And you want to go on stage, and you may not get on stage. So you really became much better. Unless you were in the clique, in the showcase clubs, you may not have gotten on stage. So we honed our craft working the weekends and one-nighters, hits, all these
Well,
little one-nighters around New York State and
yeah,
weekends.
Peter,
then
I'm going to interrupt and just say that we've talked about that earlier on the podcast with other people, because one of the things that's different from that rock and roll wave of comedy in the 80s and 90s was that isn't available to young comics today is I really felt there was a community. And like you said, if you're sitting around the catch for 6 or 7 hours, guess what you're doing? You're talking to the comics. You're talking about the business. You're honing bits. You're sharing punchlines. I mean, you really are almost like a built-in support group for comics.
Well,
and you were in the urn of, I don't know what the right term, the crucible of comedy right there in New York. And with all your training, it sounds like between New York and Chicago and back to New York and your work at college, you really were honing your craft early on. Congratulations.
Yes, that's what it was. But we were all, I mean, Ron Zimmerman was there. I mean, Adrian Talsh, Bill Sheff, Larry Ambrose was the house MC at Catch a Rising Star. But to be honest, it was very cliquish. They had a clique. And to me, it was almost like high school. Good, I'm not, you wanted to be with the cool kids that got on stage there. And you realize if you really want to be a better comic, go out and do the road. Do the comedy. Don't forget, there were comedy clubs popping up. You do weekend gigs. That's how you really got good. Not necessarily going on every night, because you're not going to get on every night. And when you get on 2 in the morning. 2 in the morning at Catch a Rising Star. All right, let's put Fogel on. 2 in the morning. I can't tell you, when I got a weekend gig at Catch a Rising Star, Robin Williams notoriously would be in town, and I'd get bumped. Robin, and I said to him once, I said, you wait for me to get my once every 3 years on stage on a Saturday night? What is there, a helicopter outside and you descend from a rope ladder? Oh, Fogel's going on stage? Oh, now would be a good time to bump him. And he apologized to me. He goes, oh, man, I'm so sorry. I've been waiting for 2 years to get a weekend spot at Catch a Rising Star. You come in. Who's going to follow you? And he laughed. And then when I would do stand-up New York, which is on the west side, I'm on stage doing my bit. And, of course, Robin was doing with Steve Martin, Waiting for Godot, down at the Lincoln Center. So after the show, he has to go up and do stand-up, right?
Right.
Robin. So he comes and Robin walks in. It's Moses coming to the Red Sea, and it's partying. When Robin walks in, everyone stops. So I'm on stage, and they keep flashing me. And Robin knows me. May he rest in peace. And he goes, no, let him finish his set. And someone said to me, you're really lucky, because I was killing. And they were flashing me to get off stage because Robin wants to go on. But he said, no, let Peter finish his set. And
Robin.
And one comic said to me, the bartender said to me, he goes, Carrie wanted you off stage because Robin walked in, and Robin said, no, let him finish his set. And then Robin went on, which was very nice.
Robin was always, and you put it very well, he could walk into any club, anywhere. He worked my stage twice, and it was always after a concert nearby, and he just loved stand-up. But I don't think he, realized, in fact, one of the times he did it, we bumped Bob Saget, and Bob was not happy. But, when you're a club owner, you can't turn down Robin Williams. And the audience, of course, would always go crazy, and Robin always had fun. But it is funny from the other side, Bob Saget, who's a great comic in his own right and now a huge success, but back then he wasn't as known. It offended him that he got bumped. And it's kind of like, well, as a club owner, you got to go with the flow.
You want to hear a funny story about, so I think I did my set. This is a Catch a Rising Star. This is before Jerry Seinfeld did Seinfeld. Okay, this is mid-'80s. Jerry had done the Tonight Show many times. He was known, but he was Jerry Seinfeld, not the Jerry Seinfeld.
Right.
So Robin goes on stage at Catch. This is during the week. Blows the room open. And who wants to follow Robin Williams? Jerry Seinfeld did. Jerry goes up on stage. He waits for the room to calm down. He looks out, very confident. He goes, piece of cake. And he did his set, and he did fine. He got his laugh. But most comics would not want to follow Robin.
No, his high energy, his kinetic energy and quick-wittedness is tough to top. But Jerry's not afraid of anything, and he's proven he can do it. Hey, so
he looked out. He goes, but he said piece of cake. He knew because they're all looking at him. What are you going to do now? This is at the height of Robin and Mork and Mindy. I mean, I've been there with Kinnison was blowing the room open. You're laughing so hard, you need air, you need oxygen. And then he did Letterman that night. I mean, it was just magical back then. So your question was getting back.
Yeah, I just wanted to get back to how you came out to the West Coast and started working for me.
Bruce Smirnoff said, you got to call Scott Edwards, use my name. And I started playing your room. You had 3 rooms, right? Did you have 2 rooms or 3 rooms?
3 rooms, 1 in Stockton and 2 in Sacramento.
Yes, I did your rooms, and you had a great room. You knew how to. There were club owners that really knew it and figured it out, and you ran a tight ship, and we had a great room. You picked me up at the airport. Airfare was nothing from LA, but I believe I did it in 86.
Yeah, I had it as the mid 80s, right? Now, did you move to LA to try your career out there, or were you just coming out for road gigs?
No, I was living out there. I was living in West Hollywood when I did Saturday. Yeah, it's Unlimited. Because Bruce and I, Smirnoff, the great Bruce Smirnoff, he and I, when I moved out in '86, we moved to we did 2 months in Australia together. That's where Bruce and I became friends, and we worked together.
Yeah, well, he's a tremendous friend and a tremendous comic, and he speaks very highly of you, Peter, and I know that you guys have been longtime friends. Now, after...
He saved my life. He saved my life. Did he ever tell you that story?
No.
Story? Oh, he saved my life on stage. We're playing Australia, and there were tough rooms. It's a different audience. They drink, they yell, they heckle, they do this. So we're doing, but we were excited to go, with 2 single guys in Australia. So I'm on stage, and the Australian comics were very blue, and some of them were good. It's like any other American comic, either good or you're bad. There's different levels of accomplishment and talent. So one comic went on stage. He was a former boxer, professional boxer, and he's getting booed, and he finally goes off stage. I go on stage, and I start getting booed. I go, hey, folks, any more booze? I'll bring Jimmy back up here. He won't talk to me. And they went, no, don't bring him back. Stay, we'll stay, Yank. We'll start laughing at your jokes. Well, that rubbed the comic very wrong. He starts fuming off stage, and he starts smacking his hand because I put him down. We bust balls. That's what comics do. But I'm still a foreigner in another country, in the Kets. So he starts, I'm going to kill him. I'm going to take that wanker. I'm going to rip his head off. And he's smacking his head like he's getting psyched for a job. Smirnoff says, okay, listen, Jimmy, come over here. You know how Bruce talks. You can't kill the comic. A, it's a criminal offense. And worst of all, if you hit him and the police come, they're never going to put you back on stage here. And calm down.
Yeah, that's the worst part. Not the jail. You might lose stage time.
Not going to jail, but you're not going to get the stage time. You don't want to kill the guy. He goes, all right, as long as he apologizes. So I get off stage, and I'm cocky because I got the audience back. And he goes, I got to talk to you. I go, hey, leave me alone. I'm fine. Let me bask in what little love I have for myself because I got to talk to you. You better apologize to Jimmy because I just saved your life. We're going to beat you to a pulp.
And that sounds just like Bruce.
And he did. He actually calmed the guy down. I think 20 years later, we got him on the phone and we were laughing about it, but they took it very seriously. Like we did an interview on a radio, on newspaper, and Bruce is he's very diplomatic. And he knew how to play the game. Bruce said, they interviewed Bruce, what do you think of Australian comics? This is in the newspaper, all right? This is the Murdoch newspaper in Australia. We're Murdoch, right? The Sun Times in Australia goes, I think this is Bruce. I think the comedians here in Australia, they are terrific. They are years ahead of us in their ability. Any one of them would come to America and become major stars. Peter, what do you think of it? Now, I didn't know what Bruce said. So they go, what do you think of the comedians? They're very blue. They're dirty. They don't have to. And I kind of insulted them. And I should have just kept my mouth shut. I go, did what Bruce says. They're wonderful comedians. They could be major stars in the series.
Well, I think you're right.
Now the locals, Now the locals hate me because I put him down, and I didn't mean to. I was just being honest.
Right. And Bruce was being diplomatic. Well, you've had a lot of experience on stages coast to coast and around the world as a stand-up comic, but I know that you were able to transition that, and you've done a lot of corporate work. In fact, didn't you do some comedy as part of the Tony Robbins tour?
No. I got hired. I did a lot of corporate comedy down here in Florida and New York. Mostly, I'm kind of wanted to be a big fish in a little pond. So there's like 5 of us down here that are clean, funny comedians that could do corporate, right? So I got hired by the Improv to work. Oh, here's a funny story about Tony Robbins. To perform for Tony Robbins' Mastermind weekend. Now, Tony got tired of the tax bill in California. He moved to West Palm Beach. He lives here legally, so he doesn't have because of the state tax. You may want to write that down. Tony Robbins lives in Florida. He pays no state tax. Write that down because that's what you're looking at, right? So they said, we want you to perform. A lot of improv acts are kind of raw. The young guys they use, they're not really corporate clean or know how to. Would do corporate gigs for Nay at the Improv. They go, you want to do a Mastermind weekend on the boat. So these people pay a lot of money to be in Tony's orbit. But we're on. They hired a magician. They hired me. So I'm on the boat.
Oh, this is on a yacht,
on a yacht, Tony's yacht, or the yacht they rented. These people paid a lot of money to be in his Mastermind group for the weekend. But you're in Tony's world. Tony doesn't know time. Tony talks. Then they realize, oh my heavens, we have to get to the boat. So they're all waiting. The boat's there, and I'm being paid whether I perform or not. So, Tony shows up with all his Mastermind group, and he looks at me and goes, who are you? Who am I? I'm the comedian that's supposed to be performing, has been waiting for 5 hours to do my show. He goes, oh my God, you're right. You're absolutely right. Ladies and gentlemen, I forgot we have entertainment. So basically he introduces me, Tony Robbins introduced me in the boat, and I look at them, I go, you're my type of audience. Wealthy, drunk people with disposable income. And they started laughing, and I just killed. And I brought my Personal Power tape from 1984, his first audio tape. And if you go on my website, which I believe you did, you saw me holding one of the tapes that Tony signed. He goes, oh my God, you still have that? I go, yes, I saved it. I knew you when you were just wealthy. And he's laughing, and he has a great sense of humor. So I did my gig for him, and that was it. That was my corporate gig. And he invited me to one of his big Mastermind groups, when he has his big symposium with 300 people walking on hot coals, whatever. And I took a picture with him. I should have gotten the video of him giving me the testimonial. Here is very important advice.
Okay, everybody, this is a comedy tip from Peter Fogel.
Comedy tip.
Here we go.
Back in the day, we would get letters of testimonial from corporate clients, correct?
Right.
We had Peter Fogel performed at our blah, blah, blah. We enjoyed him. He was, I've had things from Walgreens. If you have Tony Robbins in front of you and he loved your act, take out your iPhone and get a video testimonial right there and then.
Good advice, Peter.
Because getting a letter months later or weeks later never happened. I couldn't get through to him and the girl. When I asked him for the letter, he says, yeah, call, ask for Doreen. She'll give it to you. It was my pleasure. You did great, blah, blah, blah. But I could never get it. But I had the camera. I took the picture. Why I didn't take the video testimonial would have been a lot better.
Well, I mean,
trust me.
That's
you got to grab it right in the moment.
Grab those moments. No, that's so important and great advice. And what I was pointing out was that I have followed your career a bit, and I know that you were able to go from stage comedy to doing some corporates, which, like you said, you have to be clean, strong, and very conscious of time because corporates are different than clubs and private parties. But doing a Tony Robbins Mastermind, I think, would be a really nice notch in your resume. That's great. But how did you transfer that, or how did you switch over? Because I know really the last decade plus, you've really knocked it dead doing kind of one-man shows. That's a whole nother step. How did you go from comedy stage to corporates to one-man theater shows? I mean, that's really impressive, Peter.
Well, I always followed Bob Dubek with his one-man show. And I said, wow, he really took it. And I always thought in the back of my mind, I should do a one-man show sometime. I was offered to replace the actor that was about to be let go in a show called My Mother's Italian, My Father's Jewish, and I'm in Therapy, which became one of the longest running one-man shows in New York City history. And Steve Solomon, who wrote this brilliant one-man show with $1 million title, was looking for a comedian because he licensed the property to a producer, Phil Roger Roy, Playhouse Productions. But they needed someone that could. I was always doing voiceovers, doing different voices, and I could do accents, and I could do this, and I could do that, and I could do an old Jewish woman. So he was looking for someone that could that could replace the comedian. And Bruce Murph actually recommended me again because Bruce is in Florida.
What a good friend!
And he auditioned people on Broadway. He couldn't find any. He had Broadway auditions. He needed someone for the touring company. And here I was 4 miles from his house. So I got picked out of 65, 75 actors. I was perfect. I had no wife, no kids. I had a dog. My time was my own. And you have to travel for a month doing, shows. So I got hired to do that. And there's 2 versions, the holiday version and the original version. And as we talked earlier, I did it in Sacramento at the 24th Street Theater, one of our tours. I've been doing it. I'm going into my 9th year doing that show.
Well, let's
and
make sure.
I get to use my acting.
Peter,
I get to use my acting back. I'm sorry?
Well, I want to interrupt and make sure the podcast audience knows because this show's still out there. Yeah. And it's called My Mother's Italian, My Father's Jewish, and I'm in Therapy. That's the name of the one-man show. It has played here in Sacramento at the 24th Street Theater to great reviews and great success, sold-out shows. And I know you've been touring, as you said, for over 9 years with it. You have another show you're doing, but this one's going to continue. So I wanted to make sure people noted the title. Keep an eye out for it because could be coming to a theater near you. And if you get a chance, see this award-winning play with Peter Fogel.
Yes, and then I wrote my own solo show about 4 years ago called Till Death Do Us Part, You First.
Wait a minute. Till Death Do Us Part, You First.
You First.
Sounds like an interesting concept. How's that one going over?
Well, it was going well till COVID hit, of course. I was doing it around the country. I showcased it and workshopped it in New York, Florida, where I was creating. It's very autobiographical. It's about my commitment of ever getting married, and I was trying to figure out why I can never find the right woman. Being a stand-up comic, it's a very difficult profession. It's up and down financially, good years, bad years, everything in between. And we travel. Some people join the circus, or others become cruise ship comics.
It's funny. Yeah, it's funny you say that because I've interviewed many comics, and we've all talked about that. One of the hardest things about making a career choice of being a stand-up comedy is it can be a lonely life. It's kind of like a professional golfer. You're always on the road. You're on your own. You're up to your own talent and skill to get paid each and every night, but you're traveling and staying in hotels so much. It's really difficult to get a good relationship, good solid marriage going. Most don't last, sadly, but the fact that you were able to take those negatives that you've experienced yourself and turn it into a one-man show, Till Death Do Us Part, You First, I think is a really smart, creative decision. Now, how long has that one been playing around like the first one?
Well, I hopefully one day it'll be off Broadway like My Mother's Italian, My Father's Jewish, but everything, don't forget, we're like in a freeze frame of the world since COVID-19. So what happened was what changed the show and took it to the next level of getting noticed and people wanting it was when a friend of mine says, I got a friend coming to your show tonight in Florida. I go, who is it? Yeah, I don't want to tell you. Surprise. Just put a ticket down under my name. Well, it happened to have been Academy Award nominee Chaz Palminteri, who I knew he was my friend's friend. I never met him. He came to my show. Thank God it was a great audience. He says, this is hysterical. And he goes, what are you doing with it? He goes, well, honestly, I'm at that level. I need a director. I need that third eye. He goes, you got one. I'm going to direct your solo show, and take this to the next level. So I just like Robert De Niro discovered Chaz in his show, A Bronx Tale. People don't know who he is. He's the creator of the most successful one-man show franchise in the history of the entertainment world. A Bronx Tale started as a one-man show. Then it became the movie. Then it was written as a Broadway musical. And Chaz still tours with his show, A Bronx Tale, around the country.
Yeah, we should.
He directed my show.
Let me just let the audience know. We're talking about Chaz Palminteri. Am I saying it right? Palminteri.
Chaz Palminteri.
Look him up, Google him, go to the Googler, and when you see him, you go, oh, him, because he's done a lot of acting, and obviously he's had great success, not only with The Bronx Tale, but also, the plays, the movie. I mean, all these different things. For him to ask to direct your show is quite a feather in your cap, Peter. That's awesome.
Yeah. It was a very down-to-earth guy. He has a great comedic mind, and he thinks like a comic because we write together. We tweak, change this, do that, and you need really a third eye when you're directing one-man show because you want to catch things you can't catch. And we tweaked it. My show was like an hour and 45. We got it down to an hour and 15. We made it a lean, mean theatrical comedy machine. So it's like bang, bang, bang. It's nonstop laugh.
You were doing this right before COVID. So then COVID hit and kind of took away an opportunity to really tour with it and get the recognition it deserves. Now this, but for this year, 2022, you're going to get a chance to get out and do that, right?
Excited about it. I want to get it up again, and I'm rehearsing it now. After I hang up with this call, I'm going back to rehearsing it. It's like anything else. It's a script with 32 cues. It's a multimedia solo show. All the stories are real about my dating experiences, the crazy women I've met, my issues with marriage in general, and I explore it. It's very autobiographical. It's very touching. I don't want to give too much, and Chaz really tweaked it, but it really will start taking off again next year. The first gig I'll be doing it will be February 13th, Valentine's weekend at the Marcus Family JCC in Atlanta. Now, I don't know if anyone knows the Marcus Family JCC, and I've done it at quite a few JCCs around the country that have theaters. Bernie Marcus, the founder of Home Depot, it's his JCC in Atlanta. Now, I don't know if the fact that because he's my mother's first cousin, helped me get into the theater. Maybe it's a coincidence, but it didn't hoit. So the founder of Home Depot is my cousin.
Oh, that's great. Ladies and gentlemen, if you live near Atlanta, coming up next month in February, and you're in Atlanta, check your theater listings and go see Till Death Do Us Part, You First, starring Peter Fogel. It's going to be out there all this year. Everybody keep an eye out. And if it comes to your town, be sure to check it out. With Chaz doing the directing and your sense of humor, I bet it's a tremendous show.
It's a lot of fun. It's very catharsis when you do an autobiographical show. I mean, there are parts where it gets very poignant. I don't even have to act. It just comes from, because I'm really just laying it out there. No one wants to grow old by themselves. It's me. It's almost like therapy in a way. I'm explaining why comics do what they do, why we're more successful on stage, getting love from an audience than we are off stage in our own relationship.
That would be a great topic, because that is a situation that every entertainer, especially comics, face. And being able to be raw and open and at the same time funny, I bet will make this a very interesting show. Now, I know you're also an author. Didn't you write a book?
Well, I've written 5 books, but
I'm only aware of If Not Now, Then When, which is, again, kind of therapeutic. I mean, first off, being a stand-up comic and getting on stage is a type of therapy for all of us. I think anybody that goes on stage is using the interactions with the audience as a form of therapy, and taking it to a one-man show really exaggerates and amplifies that sense of sharing and getting back from an audience and getting that support that therapy offers. But in that same vein, if you wrote a book called If Not Now, Then When, about getting older, I mean, again, this is really smart stuff, Peter. Tell me about the book.
Well, that was my first. That was a book written in 2004. So it's Not Now Then When: Stories and Strategies of People Over 40 Who Successfully Reinvented Themselves. What I didn't tell you is when I became 40, I switched careers. When I moved back to New York, I became a copywriter. I write freelance copy for direct response advertisers and marketers. I learned another skill.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I realized that I was getting older. Our audiences are getting younger. I need to do something else because how long can you keep doing comedy clubs, right?
Right.
You're getting older. They're getting younger. You know, it was so funny. When you're 28 performing in a comedy club and people in their 50s, we used to flip out. Oh my God, these people in their 50s, how am I going to relate to them? They're not going to get my material on dating. They're married. You know, it's like a different generation, right? We would get scared, especially when we did cruise ships, when the audiences were older and you're a kid in your 20s. You don't know how to relate to people in their 50s, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I was getting older. I was hitting 40. And I got another skill. I became a copywriter and I wrote a book on people changing careers over 40. So then I went on to write another book called Reboot Your Career, and I became a motivational speaker. I wrote articles on career change, and I wrote another book called I want to write a book for the corporate market of people how to reinvent your career within your career, not leaving. See, the first book, It's Not Now Then When: Stories and Strategies of People Over 40 Who Successfully Reinvented Themselves, were people that left the corporate world and went back to doing what they really wanted to do. They changed careers.
Well, you've really tried it all. Were you inspired by working with Tony Robbins, or did going to motivational speaking just feel natural?
Yes, because I wanted to learn. You know, when you're a stand-up comic, you have a natural speaking ability and performance skills that they can't teach you anywhere else, even in Toastmasters. You know, when you're a comic 25 years, you know how to captivate and hold an audience. So I took that skill and was able to write comedy and write funny bits. I taught copywriting. I became a seminar leader in teaching copywriting to people that work with companies. And then I did how to use humor in the workplace to have more work-life balance using humor. So,
Peter,
and then I wrote
you've
another
had
book.
An incredible career. Nice job. Look at all this diversity.
Diversity.
Well, I'm just saying that you were able to recreate yourself. I mean, this interview started with a 17-year-old kid being scared to death and going on stages late at night in New York and bombing.
Smoky.
And look how you've converted. Now we've touched on, working corporates to motivational speaking, to being a copywriter, already a professional comic, making a living at it, and now the one-man shows. I mean, what an amazing career path you've taken. And I've interviewed a lot of people, and this has to be one of the more interesting success paths I've heard, Peter. So congratulations. It's been really interesting hearing about all these different things. I have a little bit of stand-up comedy to share with the audience from you. But before we end the interview, you've had such a vast array of experiences and so many things you've put your toe in career-wise. What really, motivates you? I mean, I'm thinking it's the one-man shows because you get a chance to express yourself, tell your story, and you're still performing in front of a live audience. But over these last 40 years, what really stands out to you?
In what way?
Well, what really gets Peter's juices going? What really excites you? What memories of the past or things looking forward to are you most excited about?
Well, it's the fact that I can take my acting ability, because I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts in acting and I've done theater. I take my voiceover background when I would do voiceovers, and I get the fact that I can do different characters on stage. I was blessed with the opportunity to Till Death. My mother's Italian, my father's Jewish, but to do my own show, Till Death Do Us Part, doing different characters. I use my ability to do different women's voices, annoying as they may be, but I get to use all my vocal ability in the new show to take the audience on a trip, on a journey. When I do nothing gives you more of a thrill when you're doing something that an audience resonates with about relationships, specifically like Till Death Do Us Part, You First, and you look down and you see the husband laughing and smiling and elbowing his wife, and she shoots him a dirty look because I'm doing something that resonates, and he's nodding. When I'm doing my comedy and you see a man and a woman both nodding their heads, agreeing with me about the absurdity of love and relationships, when you get to that third level, not just jokes, but they can really resonate with, it's very gratifying. And people coming up to me, this is exactly my life. I know exactly what you're going through with the dating. It's tough meeting someone of quality. Wow, you really touched something in us. So that's when you can bring it all together in the package of making them laugh, making them think about their own lives, and then of course selling merchandise out in the lobby. But it's
well.
And by the way, folks, if you want to know about my show, Till Death Do Us Part, go to my website, tilldeathdousparttheplay.com. Till Death Do Us Part, theplay.com. You can hear about you'll have my tour dates. So if I'm coming to a theater near you, you would know how to find me.
Everybody go out and do that.
Go to that. But that's the most gratifying when you can take, there are people that are just, it's like a baseball player. You know what they call the five-tool baseball player? Can hit for average, hit for power, steal, not get hurt, play every day, and is a great outfielder or a great infielder. That's a five-tooler. I kind of think of myself as a five-tooler, as a performer. I can act, I can write, I can customize my comedy, I can use my vocal abilities to play a Jewish old man or an Italian woman and bring it on stage and to earn a living at it. It's a blessing. So
it makes you a winner.
And here's the thing. Now that I'm older, my act, you see, what people don't have to understand is you're growing older, your comedic outlook of life changes. Now I'm a man of a certain age talking to an older audience. My audience isn't like Bruce Smirnoff's audience. We do condos down here. They're older, and yet we figured out how to play for them as if we were in our 20s. We couldn't. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
I'm now the age. I'm writing comedy for baby boomers, our age, and elderly people, seniors.
Yeah, but it all comes down to relating to the audience, and you've been successful at that in so many different ways. What a tremendous career. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we really appreciate Peter's time in Florida, having this interview with us. We're going to share a little bit of his stand-up comedy with you at this point. Peter, thanks for coming on the show. When you see my buddy Bruce, pleasure. Give him a hug for me. Ladies and gentlemen, here's some great stand-up comedy by Peter Fogel. Hey, thanks, Peter.
My pleasure.
Gotta be careful going to Vegas, please. Be careful. I was getting ready to perform on stage in this casino. This lunatic comes up to me, starts complaining, going, "Man, I lost so much money in this machine. I ain't won nothing." I looked at him. I go, "It's a payphone." Get a grip, Sparky, huh? Here's $1. Play the change machine. Break even. Then I had to perform in Ensenada. Ever been to Ensenada, Mexico? You know what Ensenada means? Ensa, lots of nada, nothing. I had to perform in an elderly nude beach. 78-year-old naked woman comes up to me after my show and goes, "What do you think of my birthday suit?" I go, "It needs a little ironing." I like performing around the country. I meet lunatics wherever I go. Never fails. No matter where I perform, there's always one guy that comes up to me after my show who thinks he and I are neighbors. "You're from L.A.?" I go, "Yes, I am." He goes, "Sacramento." "Excuse me?" "L.A., Sacramento." And I'm thinking L.A.'s about 6 hours from Sacramento. I'm surprised I don't get your mail by mistake. It's the same guy you meet in a mental institution. "Paranoid, schizophrenic?" "You're kidding. Psychotic." "You hear voices in your head?" "Me too. Me too." Unbelievable. You're so lucky to be living in this town. But I was in Chicago. I've been around a lot, actually. And wasn't really in Chicago last week. Just let's say for the next joke, I was in Chicago. And, joke's 4 years old. All right, let's just say I was in Chicago. Nothing phases people in the Midwest during the winter. Nothing phases them. It's like 32 below zero, the wind chill factor. These people are outside having conversations. "You know, Frank, you know what the problem with the economy is?" "Oh, my ear broke." "Sweet Jesus, help me find my lobe, huh?" "I don't care about the lobe. I had a diamond-studded earring I'd like back." Quick impression. Arnold Schwarzenegger in every movie trying to save someone who's falling off a cliff or out of a plane. Schwarzenegger does this every movie. Ready? Give me your hand. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was a short set by Peter Fogel. We want to thank him for doing the interview, and I have a little stand-up from him from back in the day. We know you enjoyed this show. Thanks for listening. Hey, be sure to tell your friends, rate us, the usual stuff, and we'll see you next week with another great podcast for you. All right? Thanks for listening. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Stand-Up Comedy, your host and MC. For information on the show, merchandise, and our sponsors, or to send comments to Scott, visit our website at www.standupyourhostandmc.com. Look for more episodes soon and enjoy the world of stand-up comedy. Visit a comedy showroom near you.